The crystal spires of Valdros Prime stretched toward the purple sky like frozen lightning. Inside the Grand Council chamber, 12 races sat in their designated seats, representing civilizations that had existed for thousands of years. Today, they would hear from the newest species to reach the stars. Humanity Ambassador Alina Vasquez walked through the massive doors. Her simple black suit looked plain compared to the flowing robes and gleaming armor of the council members. She carried only a data pad and her dignity. Behind her, 2 human guards stood at attention, their dress uniforms crisp and formal. "The human delegation may speak," announced the council speaker, a tall being made of what looked like living crystal. His voice echoed through the chamber without warmth or welcome. Alina stepped forward to the center platform. "Honorable council members, humanity comes before you today to request membership in the Galactic Council. We offer our skills in medicine, engineering, and diplomacy. We seek to learn from you and contribute to the peace that you have maintained for so long." She activated her datapad. Holographic images appeared in the air-human cities, hospitals, space stations, and ships. "We may be young by your standards, but we have achieved much in our short time among the stars." A deep laugh rumbled through the chamber. High Arbiter Kelthan of the Krex Dominion rose from his seat. He was massive, nearly 3 meters tall, covered in thick scales that shimmered like oil. Achieved much? Let us see what humanity calls achievement. Kelthan waved his clawed hand and new images replaced Elena's presentation. They showed human weapons missiles, railguns, and nuclear warheads. Next to them appeared the weapons of the Council Recess plasma cannons that could melt mountains, quantum disruptors that could tear apart molecules, and singularity bombs that created small black holes. "Look at their weapons!" Kelthan's voice boomed with amusement. "They still throw metal rods at each other. They still use chemical explosions. These are the tools we abandoned 10,000 years ago." Laughter rippled through the chamber. Not all council members joined in, but enough did to make Elena's jaw tighten. A serpentine delegate from the Silther Collective hissed with amusement. They live barely 100 years. What wisdom could such short-lived creatures possibly offer? Their fastest ships take months to cross distances we traverse in days, added another voice from the shadows. Kelthan wasn't finished. He pulled up more data. "The humans have been in space for less than 300 years. 300. Some of us have individual citizens older than their entire space program. They have colonized only 43 worlds. The Krex Dominion alone controls over 10,000 systems." Alina stood silent, letting them speak. Her face remained calm, though her knuckles were white as she gripped the datapad. "And they dare to ask for a seat on this council." Kelthan spread his arms wide. What would they contribute? Stories of their tiny wars? Demonstrations of their primitive technology? Perhaps they could teach us how to rub sticks together to make fire. The chamber erupted in laughter again. Even the council speaker's crystal form seemed to shimmer with amusement. Alina waited for the noise to die down. When she spoke, her voice was quiet but clear. "You're right about many things, High Arbiter. We are young. Our weapons are simple. Our lifespans are short. We have much to learn." She looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of each delegate who would look back at her. "But there's something you should know about humans and fire. We didn't just learn to make it. We learned to control it. We learned to use it to forge metal, to power engines, to light our way through the darkness. We took something dangerous and made it serve us." Kelthan snorted. "A poetic speech, Ambassador. But poetry does not earn council seats. The answer is no. Humanity is denied membership. Perhaps in another 1,000 years, when you have grown up, you may apply again." The council speaker raised his crystalline hand. "The decision is final. The human delegation is dismissed." Alina gathered her datapad. She gave a formal bow to the council, her movements precise and controlled. As she turned to leave, she paused and looked back at Kelthan. "High Arbiter, there's one more thing about fire that you should remember." "And what is that, human?" Kelthan asked, his tone dripping with condescension. "We learned to make it in caves when we had nothing. We've never stopped burning. And fire, once started, has a way of spreading. With that, Alina walked out of the chamber. The guards followed her, their backs straight and proud despite the humiliation. Behind them, the council members returned to their other business, already forgetting about the humans they had just dismissed. 2 weeks later, the emergency alarms began screaming across every council world. The Vrask swarms had emerged from dark space. Long-range sensors showed thousands of bioships moving in a coordinated wave toward council territory. The Vrask appeared once every century, and every time they came, civilizations burned. In orbit around Earth, Admiral James Park stood on the bridge of the human flagship Indomitable. He watched the emergency broadcasts from the council worlds. He saw the panic in their transmissions, heard the fear in their voices. His communications officer looked at him. "Sir, should we offer assistance?" Park was silent for a long moment. He was 58 years old, with gray hair and scars from the resource wars that had nearly destroyed Earth decades ago. He had seen what desperation looked like. He had learned what it took to survive. "Not yet," he said quietly. "Let them try their superior technology first. Let them see what their advanced weapons can do." He turned to look at Earth through the viewport, the blue marble that had spawned a species too primitive for the Council. "But get the fleet ready. We have a different kind of lesson to teach." The Council laughed at humanity one Terran fleet taught. Them the meaning of fire, ## Part 2. The Council's fall. The Vrask swarms moved through space like a living nightmare. Each bioship was a massive creature, grown rather than built, with weapons that were parts of its body. Millions of smaller Vrask fighters swarmed around the larger vessels like insects around a hive. High Arbiter Kelfon stood in the command center of the Krek's flagship Dominant Will. Around him, tactical displays showed the approaching enemy. He felt confident. The Council had faced the Vrask before and always won through superior firepower and coordination. "All fleets assume battle formation," Kelthon commanded. "Prepare quantum disruptors and plasma cannons. We will destroy them before they reach our colonies." The Council's combined fleet was impressive. Over 3,000 ships from 12 different races, each one equipped with weapons that could destroy planets. They had energy shields that could withstand nuclear explosions. They had targeting systems that could hit a target from 1,000,000 kilometers away. The Vrask came forward without fear. The first battle took place near the mining colonies of Theta Sector. Council ships opened fire at maximum range. Brilliant beams of plasma streaked across space. Quantum disruptors created ripples in reality that tore through Vrask bioships. Hundreds of the creatures died in the first volley. Kelthon allowed himself a smile. Just as before, their numbers mean nothing against our technology. But then something changed. The Vrask that survived the first attack began to shift. Their organic hulls rippled and changed color. When the second volley of plasma fire hit them, the beams scattered harmlessly off their modified surfaces. The quantum disruptors still worked, but less effectively. "They're adapting," reported the Krek's tactical officer, his voice uncertain. "Their biological systems are evolving in real time." "It's impossible," Kelthon said. "That would require 3 more colonies just went dark," another officer interrupted. "The Vrask are spreading faster than our projections." Over the next 72 hours, the situation grew worse. The Vrask adapted to every weapon the Council used. Energy shields became useless as the Vrask developed acid that ate through the field generators. Long-range targeting meant nothing. When the Vrask could jam sensors with biological interference, the Council fleets fell back, regrouping, trying new strategies. Nothing worked for long. The Vrask learned and adapted within hours. On Valdros Prime, the Council met in emergency session. For the first time in 1,000 years, fear filled the crystal chamber. "We need to try new weapons," suggested the Silther delegate. "Different energy frequencies. Perhaps we've tried 17 different frequencies," Kelthon snapped. "They adapt to all of them. We're losing 3 ships for every one we destroy." "The outer colonies have been evacuated," reported another delegate. "But the Vrask are consuming everything: ships, stations, even asteroids. They're using the matter to grow more of themselves." Ambassador Elena Vasquez watched the council meeting through a secure transmission. She sat in the human embassy on Valdros Prime, far from the fighting. Her assistant, a young man named David Chen, stood beside her. "They're going to lose," David said quietly. Elena nodded. "The council has forgotten how to fight an enemy that won't play by their rules. They've had peace for so long that they've forgotten what war really looks like." Her communication panel lit up with incoming messages. They weren't from Earth. They were from smaller council races, species without strong fleets of their own. The messages all said the same thing. Asterisk, please help us. The humans know how to fight, please. Asterisk. Elena looked at each message, her face troubled. They mocked us, called us primitive, laughed at our weapons. Are we going to let them die because of that? David asked. Elena was quiet for a long moment. Then she began typing a message to Earth, to Admiral Park and the human fleet. Meanwhile, in council space, Kelthan refused to give up. But he also refused to ask the humans for help. His pride wouldn't allow it. "We are the Krex Dominion," he told his officers. "We have ruled the stars for 10,000 years. We will not beg help from children." But in the darkness of his private quarters, Kelthon watched the casualty reports grow. Entire fleets were disappearing. Colonies that had existed for millennia were being consumed. The Vrosk were unstoppable. At the edge of council space, Admiral Park received Elena's message. It wasn't an official request for help, the council hadn't asked. But it was information about the situation and the locations of key, strategic points. Park called his command staff together. They gathered in the briefing room of the indomitable 20 officers from different human colonies, experienced veterans from Earth's various conflicts. "The council is losing," Park said bluntly. "They're too rigid. They fight like generals playing a game with rules. The Vrask don't follow rules. Are we going to help them, sir?" asked Captain Sarah Morrison of the destroyer Defiant. "They didn't ask for our help," Park replied. "Since when do we wait to be asked?" said Commander Ginho Kim. "People are dying." Park nodded slowly. "I served in the resource wars. I saw Earth nearly tear itself apart. We learned something in those dark days, something the Council has forgotten. We learned that survival doesn't care about pride or dignity or advanced technology. Survival only cares about one thing, doing whatever it takes." He activated the tactical display, showing Vrask movements in Council fleet positions. "There's a strategic bottleneck here at the Koresh corridor. The Vrask have to pass through it to reach the core Council worlds. If we can hold that position, we can buy the Council time to evacuate their civilians." "Sir, our fleet is only 97 ships," Morrison pointed out. "The Council just lost 3,000. "True," Park said with a grim smile. "But we have something they don't. We know how to fight dirty. We know how to win when we're outmatched. And we're not afraid to use weapons the Council considers too primitive." He sent orders to the fleet. "All ships, prepare to move. Set course for the Koresh corridor. Load kinetic weapons and prepare chemical warheads. We're going to teach the galaxy what humanity learned in the dark." As the human fleet began to move, a single scout ship broke away from the formation. The Prometheus was a small vessel with a crew of only 12. Its captain, a young woman named Lisa Park, the Admiral's daughter, sent a message to her father. "Dad, requesting permission to scout ahead." Admiral Park knew what she was really asking. The Prometheus would go into Vrask territory, draw their attention, and buy the main fleet time to set up defensive positions. It was dangerous. It might be suicide. He wanted to say no. But he had taught his daughter the same lessons he had learned in war. Sometimes good people have to do hard things. "Permission granted," he said, his voice steady despite the pain in his chest. "Come back safe." The Prometheus jumped to faster than light speed, heading straight into the Vrask swarm. As it went, it broadcast a simple message in all directions. "Come and see what fire really means." The Council laughed at humanity, one Terran fleet taught them the meaning of fire ## Part 3. The fire awakens the Koresh corridor was a natural choke point in Spasa region, where gravitational anomalies from 3 dead stars made faster than light travel difficult. Ships had to slow down and navigate carefully through the corridor. It was the perfect place for an ambush. Admiral Park's fleet arrived first. 97 human ships spread out across the corridor, taking positions behind asteroids and debris fields. They powered down their main systems to avoid detection, running on minimal power like submarines hiding in Earth's ancient oceans. All ships report ready. "Sir," said Commander Torres from the tactical station. Park nodded. He was looking at the sensor readings showing the approaching Vrask swarm. There were thousands of them, maybe more. His small fleet would be like a match trying to stop a flood.
Oh.
"Remember the plan," Park broadcast to all ships. "We're not here to win. We're here to make them angry enough to chase us. We're the bait, and we need to look tasty enough to follow." The crew of the Indomitable laughed nervously. They knew what they were facing. They had all volunteered. The Prometheus appeared on sensors, coming back from Vrask territory at full speed. Behind it, a massive portion of the Vrask swarm was following. Drawn by the scout ship's provocative message and hit-and-run attacks, Captain Park reports she's leading them right to us, Torres said. "She's taking damage, but still operational." Admiral Park felt his chest tighten. His daughter's ship was falling apart, but she was still flying, still fighting. Pride and fear mixed in his heart. "All ships, weapons free on my mark," Park said. "Let's show them why humans don't need fancy energy weapons." The Vrask swarm entered the corridor. The lead bioships were massive, covered in organic armor that had already adapted to resist plasma and energy weapons. They moved with confidence, expecting no resistance. Park said quietly. The human fleet opened fire, but they didn't use energy weapons. Instead, massive railguns fired solid metal slugs at incredible speeds. These weren't sophisticated weapons. They were just metal rods accelerated to a fraction of light speed using magnetic force. Simple, primitive, unstoppable. The kinetic rounds punched through Vrask bioships like bullets through paper. The organic armor that had adapted to energy weapons couldn't evolve fast enough to stop solid matter traveling at relativistic speeds. Physics didn't care about adaptation. Dozens of Vrask ships died in the first volley. Chemical warheads, fire. Park ordered missiles streaked from human ships, not carrying explosives, but carrying compounds developed in human laboratories. Acids that ate through organic matter. Toxins that disrupted biological processes. Nerve agents that confused Vrask coordination. The Council had banned many of these weapons as inhumane. The humans had kept them anyway, knowing that someday they might face an enemy that didn't care about treaties. The Vrask swarm recoiled, confused. They had adapted to energy. They hadn't expected anyone to still use chemical warfare. "Hit and run," Park commanded. "Don't stay in one place." The human ships scattered, firing as they moved. They didn't fight like the orderly Council fleets, maintaining formation and following doctrine. They fought like pirates, like guerrillas, like desperate survivors who knew every trick in the book. The Prometheus finally reached the human lines. Trailing atmosphere and debris, Admiral Park sent repair drones to help. But he knew the small ship was dying. On the bridge of the Prometheus, Captain Lisa Park looked at her crew. They were all young, all volunteers. They knew what was coming. "We bought them time," she said. "That's what matters. But we can still do more." Her engineering officer understood immediately. "Captain, if we overload the reactor, we'll take a lot of them with us," Lisa finished. She opened a channel to her father's ship. "Dad, we're not going to make it. Reactor's too damaged. But we can make it count." On the Indomitable, Admiral Park closed his eyes for just a moment. When he opened them, they were wet, but his voice was steady. "Make them remember you, Lisa. Make them remember all of you." The Prometheus turned and accelerated back toward the Vrask swarm. The small ship pushed its dying reactor past every safety limit. It glowed brighter and brighter as it approached a Vrask. Command ship, one of the massive creatures that coordinated the swarm's movements. The crew of the Prometheus sang as they flew. They sang an old Earth song about brave sailors and dangerous seas. They sang until the moment their ship collided with the Vrask command vessel and detonated like a star. The explosion consumed hundreds of Vrask ships. More importantly, it destroyed a coordination node. Part of the swarm became confused, attacking their own in the chaos. Across the human fleet, there was silence. Then Admiral Park spoke, his voice carrying to every ship. The Prometheus just showed us how to win. We don't need to be more advanced. We don't need to be more sophisticated. We just need to be willing to do what they won't expect. The battle raged for 18 hours. The human fleet used every trick they knew. They hid behind asteroids and struck without warning. They used the corridor's gravitational anomalies to slingshot torpedoes at unexpected angles. They even used old-fashioned nuclear warheads devices, so primitive the Council had forgotten they existed. But most of all, they used something the Council had lost: the willingness to sacrifice. Human ships rammed Vrask vessels when they ran out of ammunition. Crews set their reactors to overload and used their ships as bombs. Pilots and damaged fighters flew into Vrask bioships, detonating their fuel tanks manually. The Council fleet, watching from a safe distance, was horrified and amazed. High Arbiter Kelthan watched the tactical displays in silence. He saw humans dying by the hundreds, but taking thousands of Vrask with them. "They're insane," whispered one of his officers. "No," Kelthan said slowly. "They're survivors. They know how to fight when losing is not an option." For the first time since the war began, the Vrask swarm was actually retreating. Not because they were defeated, they still had superior numbers. But because the humans had made the corridor too costly to pass through, Admiral Park surveyed his fleet. They had started with 97 ships. Now they had 63. But they had held the line. "Send a message to the Council," Park said. "Tell them we've bought them time. Tell them to use it wisely." Paused, then added, "And tell High Arbiter Kelthan that if he wants to see how primitives fight, he's welcome to join us on the front line." The message was sent. Across Council space, billions watched the recordings of the battle. They saw the humans using ancient weapons. They saw the sacrifices, the determination, the absolute refusal to surrender, and they saw something else. They saw that sometimes the old ways, the primitive ways, the brutal ways, were the ways that worked. The Vrask swarm regrouped, preparing for another assault. But now they saw the humans as a primary threat. They diverted more forces toward the Koresh corridor, which meant fewer attacking Council worlds. On his flagship, Admiral Park sent one more message to the Council, specifically to Kelthan. "You wanted to know what humans learned while playing with fire? We learned that sometimes you need to burn the world to save it. Now, you run and protect your civilians. We'll hold the line, because that's what humans do. We stand and fight when everyone else runs." The Council laughed at humanity. One Terran fleet taught them the meaning of fire ##. Part 4. What humanity learned in the Dark 3 days after the first battle. The Vrask came again. This time they brought everything. The swarm that approached the Koresh corridor was 50 times larger than before. Sensors showed them coming like a living wall of teeth and hunger. Admiral Park stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, looking at the tactical display. His fleet was down to 63 ships. Many were damaged. Crews were exhausted, but there was no retreat. Behind them were the core Council worlds where billions of civilians were still evacuating. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission," said Commander Torres. "It's from High Arbiter Kelthan." Park nodded. "Put him through." Kelthan's scaled face appeared on the screen. The arrogant sneer was gone. Now he looked tired, perhaps even humble. "Admiral Park, the Council recognizes your sacrifice. We are sending what remains of our fleet to assist you. It will take 3 days to arrive." "We don't have 3 days," Park replied. "That swarm will be here in 6 hours." "Then retreat," Kelthan said. "Fall back to the secondary defensive line. You have done enough." Park smiled grimly. "With respect, High Arbiter, we haven't done nearly enough. Besides, humans have a saying, the only way out is through." He cut the transmission before Kelthan could respond. Then he turned to his crew. "Implement Protocol Inferno. Authorization, Park Alpha 7. The bridge crew went silent. They all knew what Protocol Inferno was. It was a tactical doctrine developed from humanity's darkest moments, the wars that nearly destroyed Earth, the desperate battles in the colonies, the times when survival meant doing terrible things. Sir, Torres said carefully, Protocol Inferno has never been used in actual combat. The Council will. The Council isn't here, Park interrupted. We're going to do what we've always done, whatever it takes to win. Protocol Inferno wasn't about honor or clean warfare. It was about total war, calculated brutality, and the willingness to destroy everything the enemy needed to survive. The human fleet spread out across the Koresh corridor. This time they didn't hide. They moved openly, positioning themselves near every large asteroid, every debris field, every source of matter in the region. Begin Phase 1, Park ordered. Human ships opened fire on the asteroids, not to mine them or move them to destroy them. Massive explosions turned rock into dust, spreading clouds of debris through the corridor. What are they doing? Wondered the Vrask, though they didn't think in words. They only knew that their food was disappearing. The asteroids they would have consumed to grow more bioships were being turned to useless powder. Phase 2, Park said. Deploy the packages. From every human ship, small objects drifted into space. They looked harmless, just metal spheres the size of basketballs. But each one contained something the Council had banned centuries ago, antimatter. The spheres spread throughout the corridor. Hidden in the debris clouds, they were set to detonate remotely, creating explosions that could vaporize anything nearby. The Council considered antimatter weapons too dangerous, too unpredictable. The humans considered them effective. Phase 3, Park continued. Prepare for psychological warfare. This was the part he hated most. But he had learned in the resource wars that breaking an enemy's will was just as important as breaking their ships. Human vessels began broadcasting signals. On all frequencies, sounds, electromagnetic pulses, radiation patterns. They had studied the Vrask, learned how the creatures communicated. Now they flooded space with noise, disrupting the swarm's coordination. It was like screaming in someone's ear until they couldn't think straight. The Vrask swarm entered the corridor, and this time they came with rage. They had identified the humans as the primary threat. They would consume these primitive creatures and grow stronger. Fire at will, Park ordered. The battle that followed was nothing like the orderly conflicts the Council fought. It was chaos, brutality, and desperation turned into tactics. Human ships targeted Vrask vessels, but they also targeted themselves. They deliberately damaged their own cooling systems, venting superheated plasma into space. The Vrask that came close were burned by the heat. The humans turned their ships into flying radiators, sacrificing functionality to create weapons. When a human ship was too damaged to fight, it didn't retreat. It positioned itself in the path of Vrask bioships and overloaded its reactor. The detonations carved holes through the swarm. The antimatter packages activated, one by one. Each explosion created a temporary sun in the corridor. Vrask ships vanished in the blasts, turned to atoms instantly. The swarm tried to adapt, but you can't adapt to antimatter. It destroys everything equally. Captain Morrison of the Defiant watched her ammunition counter drop to 0. Her ship was scarred and burning, but she wasn't done. All hands, this is the captain, she broadcast. It's been an honor serving with you. Engineering route, all power to the engines. We're going to hit them so hard they feel it in their DNA. The Defiant accelerated toward the largest Vrask bioship in range. The crew sang songs from their different homeworlds: Chinese, Korean, Mexican, Nigerian, a chorus of human defiance. They hit the Vrask vessel at full speed, the reactor detonating on impact. Across the galaxy, the Council watched the battle through long-range sensors. They watched humans employ tactics that were brutal, terrifying, and effective. They watched a species that had been laughed at just weeks ago, fighting with a ferocity that made ancient predators look tame. Ambassador Elena Vasquez watched too. Tears ran down her face as she saw the casualty reports. So many dead. So many brave souls who would never see Earth again. David Chen stood beside her. Are we monsters, Ambassador? The things we're doing, the Council will call us barbarians. Lena wiped her tears. Maybe we are. But we're barbarians who save civilizations. We're monsters who protect the innocent. Humanity learned something in our dark history. David, we learned that sometimes good people have to do evil things to stop greater evil. She opened a channel to Admiral Park. Admiral, the Council is calling for you to cease using antimatter weapons. They say it's too destructive. Park's face appeared on the screen. He looked like he had aged 10 years in 3 days. Tell the Council they're welcome to come here and tell me themselves. Until then, I'm using every weapon we have. We're not fighting for glory or membership or respect. We're fighting because people need to live. And if that makes us barbarians in their eyes, so be it. The battle raged for 36 hours straight. The Vrask kept coming, but for every human ship they destroyed, they lost dozens of their own. The corridor became a graveyard of bioships and human vessels mixed together in death. Finally, human intelligence detected something, a massive signal deep in an asteroid field on the far side of the corridor. Analysis confirmed what Park had hoped for, the Vrask Queen ship. The central intelligence that coordinated the entire swarm. That's it, Park said. That's their brain. If we kill it, the swarm loses coordination. Sir, it's defended by thousands of Vrask ships, Torres reported. And it's in an asteroid field, could be a trap. Park looked at his remaining vessels. They were down to 37 operational ships. Most were damaged. Crews were running on stimulants and determination. Broadcast to all ships, he said. We've found their queen. We're going to kill it. This is probably a trap. We're probably going to die. But if we succeed, we save billions. I won't order anyone to follow me on this. It's your choice. He waited. On every ship, crews looked at each other. They thought of the people they were protecting. They thought of the Prometheus and the Defiant, and all the ships that had already sacrificed everything. 37 ships responded with the same message. We're with you. Let's finish this. The Council laughed at humanity. One Terran fleet taught them the meaning of fire. Part 5. The Council's lesson. The asteroid field was like a maze of stone and death. Rocks the size of mountains drifted in complicated patterns, creating hiding places for thousands of Vrask ships. In the center, protected by layers of bioships and asteroids, was the queen, a massive creature 10 kilometers long. It's pulsing with organic energy. Admiral Park's fleet approached in tight formation. They moved slowly, carefully, knowing that death waited in every shadow. Sensors are picking up multiple Vrask signatures, Torres reported. They're everywhere. It's definitely a trap. Of course it is, Park said. But we're going in anyway. All ships, weapons free. Kill anything that moves. The trap sprang shut immediately. Vrask bioships emerged from behind asteroids surrounding the human fleet. There were hundreds of them, maybe thousands. The humans were outnumbered 30-1. The battle was close and brutal. Human ships fired in all directions, their railguns tearing through Vrask vessels. The enemy pressed in from all sides, their organic weapons ripping into human hulls. The cruiser Beijing lost its engines and began to drift. Captain Zhang broadcast his final message. For Earth. For humanity. His ship's reactor overloaded, taking 20 Vrask vessels with it. The destroyer Lagos broke apart under sustained fire. But not before launching every missile it had at the Queen ship. Most were intercepted, but 3 got through. Burning holes in the Queen's organic armor, ship after ship died. But each death bought the others. Precious meters of progress toward the target. Park watched his fleet disappear from the tactical display one by one. Good people. Brave people. His people. Each loss felt like a knife in his heart, but he couldn't stop. Not when they were so close. We've lost over half the fleet, Torres reported, her voice shaking. Hull integrity at 40%. We can't take much more. We don't need to take much more, Park said. We just need to reach the Queen. Helm, full speed. All power to forward shields. Indomitable surged forward. absorbing terrible damage. Vrask weapons tore chunks from its hull. Systems failed one by one. But the great ship kept moving, pushing through the swarm like a blade. Then something unexpected happened. New signatures appeared on Censor's Council ships, arriving 3 days early. High Arbiter Kelthan had pushed his fleet to maximum speed, risking engine damage to get there faster. Human fleet, this is Kelthan, came the transmission. We're here. Hold on, the Krex Dominion flagship Dominant Will entered the asteroid field with 50 Council ships behind it. They opened fire with plasma cannons and quantum disruptors, drawing the Vrask's attention. For the first time, Council ships fought beside human vessels as true allies. The Krex ships used their heavy armor to shield damaged human vessels. The swift Silther fighters harassed Vrask defenders, buying the indomitable precious seconds. "Thank you," Park transmitted to Kelthan. "But stay back. What we're about to do is going to be dangerous." "Then it's a good thing we're here to help," Kelthan replied. "Finish it, Admiral. We'll hold them off." The Indomitable finally broke through the last line of defenders. The Queen ship was directly ahead, massive and terrible. It was spawning new Vrask even as they watched, birthing bioships to replace the ones being destroyed. "Sir, the Queen is charging some kind of weapon," Torres warned. "If it hits us, it won't get the chance," Park interrupted. "Engines. Collision course. Everyone except essential crew. Get to the escape pods. That's an order." Torres stared at him. "Sir, you can't. I'm not asking you to die with me, Commander. Get our people out. That's an order." Torres's eyes filled with tears, but she nodded. "Yes, sir." "It's been an honor, Admiral." Park watched his crew abandon ship. Escape pods launched in all directions, picked up by other human and Council vessels. Within minutes, only Park remained on the bridge of the Indomitable. He looked out at the stars one last time. He thought of Earth, the blue world that had spawned a species tough enough to survive anything. He thought of his daughter Lisa and the crew of the Prometheus. He would see them soon. "Reactor overload sequence initiated," the computer announced. "Core breach in 60 seconds. Park aimed the Indomitable directly at the Queen ship's center mass. The dying flagship accelerated, its damaged engines screaming. "This is Admiral James Park of the Terran fleet." He broadcast on all frequencies. "To the Council races watching, remember this. Remember that humans kept fighting when you said we couldn't win? Remember that we used primitive weapons and ancient tactics to do what your advanced technology couldn't. And remember that we did it not for glory or membership, but because it was right." He smiled. "Fire isn't primitive. It's primal. It's the first weapon and the last resort. And humans have never forgotten how to use it." The Indomitable struck the Queen ship at full speed. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the overloaded reactor detonated with the force of a small sun. The Queen died instantly, vaporized in nuclear fire. The explosion consumed hundreds of Vrask ships and sent shockwaves through the asteroid field. And without the Queen's coordination, the swarm fell into chaos. Across the galaxy, the Vrask suddenly became disorganized. Bioships stopped working together. Some attacked each other in confusion. The unified swarm broke into scattered groups that were easily defeated by Council forces. The war was over. Humanity had won. 2 weeks later, the Galactic Council convened an emergency session. The crystal chamber on Valdros Prime was packed with delegates from every member race. Ambassador Elena Vasquez stood in the center, but this time no one was laughing. High Arbiter Kelthan rose from his seat. The massive Krex looked diminished somehow, humbled by what he had witnessed. "The Council owes humanity a debt that can never be repaid," Kelthan said, his voice carrying through the chamber. "We mocked you. We called you primitive. We dismissed your weapons as toys and your tactics as barbaric. And when death came for us all, you saved us using those same weapons and tactics we had ridiculed." He bowed his great head, something no Krex had done before another species in recorded history. "I apologize. We were fools. You are not children playing with fire. You are masters of it." "The Council unanimously offers humanity full membership," announced the speaker. "Additionally, we propose creating a new position emergency response force with command authority during galactic crises. We would like humanity to fill this role." Alina stood silent for a long moment. She thought of Admiral Park, of Lisa Park, of the thousands of humans who had died to save strangers who had laughed at them. "The Council's apology is accepted," she said finally. "But we don't need your membership as a reward. We need it as partners. And we need your promise that you'll never forget what happened here." "What promise, specifically?" the speaker asked. "Promise that you'll remember fire," Alina said. "Remember that the simplest weapon can still be the most effective. Remember that young civilizations have lessons to teach old ones. And remember that humanity earned its place here not through technology, but through the courage to fight when fighting seemed impossible." She looked around the chamber. "We'll accept your membership. We'll serve as your emergency response force, but not because we want glory. We do it because someone has to stand between the innocent and the darkness. And humans have always been good at that," the Council agreed. Humanity became the 13th member of the Galactic Council, with special authority to act in emergencies. 6 months later, a memorial was built on Earth. It listed the names of every human who had died in the Vrask War. At the top, in letters that caught the sunlight, were the names of Admiral James Park and the crew of the Prometheus. Alina visited the memorial with David Chen. They stood in silence, reading the names. "Do you think it was worth it?" David asked. "All those deaths just to save people who mocked us?" Alina thought about the billions of Council civilians who were alive because humans had fought. She thought about the children on those worlds who would grow up never knowing how close they had come to extinction. "A young ensign asked me something similar once," she said. "I told him yes, it was worth it. The Council laughed at our fire. Now, they'll never forget it. They learned that humanity's strength isn't our technology. It's our refusal to give up, our willingness to sacrifice, our ability to do terrible things in defense of good." She touched one of the names on the wall, Admiral James Park. "They wanted to know if we were civilized enough for the Council. Instead, we taught them what civilization really means. It's not about how advanced your weapons are. It's about what you're willing to sacrifice to protect others."
Oh.
David nodded slowly. "So we're the galaxy's defenders now?" "Someone has to be," Alina replied. "And humans have always been good at standing in the fire when others run from it. That's our gift and our curse. That's what makes us human." They left the memorial as the sun set, casting long shadows across the names of the fallen. Above them, human ships patrolled the spaceways, ready to answer the next crisis. The Council had learned its lesson. Fire, once started, never truly goes out, and humanity would keep burning as long as there were people who needed protecting. Galaxy was safer because humans had shown them something, ancient and primal, that sometimes the most powerful weapon isn't advanced technology or superior numbers. Sometimes the most powerful weapon is the simple, terrible determination of a species that learned to survive in caves and never forgot how.